to start the ball rolling today is the wonderful Renee Holder. Allow me to introduce that song that you were listening to when you first arrived, I Belong Here by Setmo, is Renee's choice, and she definitely belongs at IECL. Not quite the longest serving IECL employee today, but very close to it. So I've known Renee for 11 years that I've been working at IECL, and what a joy it's been. She is now the head of coaching products and programs. And so she knows a lot of coaching, from sales when she first started, moving into coaching and supporting me in the coaching practice, and then the coaching practice, and now recently into the head of coaching products and programs, which looks after all of the SME family. So ladies and gentlemen, get excited, and a big warm welcome to Renee to take us through what is coaching.
Thank you, John. No pressure. What a build up. What an intro. It's so lovely to be with you all here today, to see some familiar faces and new faces too. I have a very short amount of time to get through a very big topic. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me for 1 second. Okay, because we're looking at an overview of organisational coaching, what it is, and its impact. So apparently I have about 20 minutes to cover off this big juicy topic. And of course, we want to allow a little bit of time for Q&A and some time for a short break before we launch into our next session as well. But it's not really enough time to cover this topic deeply. So what we'll be doing is a quick skim across organisational coaching and its impact. But it's important to see this session as a setting of the scene and a conversation starter for this afternoon, because what I'll be sharing with you here really is just a little bit of a starter for what's to come. So in this session, I will look at intro to organisational coaching, what it is, why it's critical in the world right now. We'll take a look at the impact of coaching, and I'll point to some references and research, some data points of other people's, other organisations, and also our own. And along the way, you'll get an insight into who we are and how we work. Before I get started, I just wanted to sort of highlight, and we'll start by highlighting a few things that we're noticing at the moment in organisational coaching. And whilst we are seeing the demand for external coaches continuing to grow and grow, we're also seeing a continued rise of the internal coach in its many, many forms. So, you know, gone are the days of internal coaches being confined to roles such as, you know, HR, learning and development, organisational development, change managers, and so forth. Now we're seeing internal coaches and leaders taking a coaching approach, coming through all forms of our coach training and coach education, dipping in and out of our learning experiences, and requesting coaching that are coming from all places within organisations, all leader levels and all industries. And we're really seeing that diversity in the organisations and groups that we work with. And the broad range of applications of coaching in organisations is growing as well. So one area we're noticing is continued increased demand in team coaching. And more where organisations are seeing team coaching as really as a vehicle for high performance, for high performing teams, and valuing the team, you know, seeing them less as a group of individuals and seeing them more as a cohesive learning unit. And we're starting to notice team coaching edging closer and closer to the way that individual coaching is seen, in the sense that it's starting to be considered as a must-have rather than a nice-to-have, which is great news. So we're also noticing the ongoing increased recognition of reputable certification or credentialing on the rise. So noticing increased demand for IECL's own offering in this space, and also looking to, you know, professional bodies such as the International Coaching Federation, who we're aligned to, noticing that they're reporting increased numbers like never before in terms of their membership base and credentialed numbers. We're also seeing on the rise what is broadly referred to as online coaching. So new entrants moving into the market increasingly. Many of these big players are now, technology companies who have strong sales teams, entering the coaching industry. So all of these trends and themes, these things that we're noticing, are really shifting and changing the coaching industry, and really evolving and nudging our frames and our definitions that we put around coaching. Is continuing to be challenged and continuing to grow in our understanding and moving it in different directions, which is great to be a part of. At IECL, our mission is to enable every leader to have access to world-class coaching. And by this, we don't mean necessarily that every leader has their own coach. Some may, and some are provided, a coach by us or by our fabulous alumni or our extended network. But we also extend this to include leaders having access to world-class coaching as coaching capability grows within organisations and as coaching cultures evolve. We're seeing many clients incorporating coaching into their leadership capability frameworks. And as that capability grows in organisations, teams reporting into those leaders with those capabilities have access to world-class coaching too. So we see this as a really broad brush frame in which we operate. And I think you're starting to notice, even from this brief intro, that organisational coaching encompasses many, many things. Let's move on now to have a look at, I think what I wanted to share with you was some of the things, not that just IECL is sharing, but that we're seeing out in the broader marketplace that are signalling to us why it's really, that coaching, it's a critical time for coaching right now. And I'm sure, this world is familiar to all of you, you're operating in it. And, we're hearing from places like the DDI Global Leadership Forecast of 2021, that developing the next generation of leaders is the #1 challenge plaguing CEOs. So they're stating that it's the one thing that's keeping them up at night is this bench strength. It's the capability that's coming through and the capability of leaders to be able to deal with the environment that we're facing at the moment. And interestingly, as we look into that data a little bit more deeply and into that DDI report, they looked at what were the top 5 predictive factors for engagement and retention of those leaders. So if one of the critical things for organisations is finding, hiring, engaging and retaining this critical mass of leaders, these exceptional leaders, then what are the things that are weighing in on that? So here are the top 5, and many of them link beautifully to coaching, and one of them explicitly. You'll see number 5, receive effective coaching from their manager. So if we're going to find and retain the best talent to take our organisations where they need to go in the future, and it's becoming increasingly complex, then having an effective coaching conversation with your manager will be key to that. But also some other factors, including number 4 here, having a high quality development plan and a manager that genuinely cares about their well-being. So we're seeing lots of signals here, things that link beautifully to coaching, and you can see how that building of internal coaching capability and the offering of coaching in all its forms will really help to serve this outcome around developing that next generation of leaders. We also refer back to a McKinsey paper that was published back in May 2020, which is just as relevant today as it was at the beginning of the pandemic, stating that now is the time for companies to double down on their learning budgets and commit to reskilling. Developing this muscle will also strengthen companies for future disruptions. Okay, so there's lots and lots of signals. What I want to do here is just point to a little bit more detail in that DDI report that I referred to, because they also looked at critical leadership skills required to meet business challenges. And again, I've pulled out the top 5 here: leading virtual teams, number 2, coaching and delegation, empathy, digital acumen, and building partnerships. So there's lots and lots of signals in that report. And obviously, if you if you want to go and access the full report, go ahead and pull that out. But the report states, interestingly, the combination between number 2 and 3. So coaching and delegation, along with empathy, were foundational across business challenges, allowing businesses to respond to those challenges. So these are especially important, the report stated, for leaders who are now having to navigate more difficult conversations and provide support to stretched employees. I mean, who isn't stretched these days? I'm seeing this in my own coaching and what the coaching I undertake myself, with my team, with our client organisations that we work with. It's absolutely a common theme. And the scary part is, that was featured in the report as well, is that currently the majority of leaders feel underprepared in all 5 of those critical skills. Okay, so how do we help with this? I'll move on now to start giving you a sense of the IECL approach. And for those of you that have either been to an introductory event or maybe undertaken some of our coach training, this will look very familiar to you. So we'll have a look at the IECL landscape of organisational coaching in order to get a sense of how coaching helps to address these needs in organisations. So where we start, this top left here, is one of the lenses. And the first lens, is really this mindset, beliefs, values, and self-talk are just some examples of our inner world, the things that are often contained within us. And this is one lens that we look at. Another is how those things are expressed in the external world. So how does my mindset, behaviours, and values show up in our actions, in what we do, in what people observe of us, in our skills, and in our body language, our non-verbals as well. But of course, in organisational coaching, we're not just working with the individual, we're also looking at how our individual world interacts with the broader world around us, our networks, our relationships, the culture and politics that exists within an organisation or within the systems we're a part of. And fourth, we're looking at the environment. COVID as an example in our shared external world is part of our external environment, the structure of our organisations and our teams, the policies and procedures and systems. So when we think about organisational coaching and the impact it can have, in organisational coaching, we're looking at this whole system, and we work with the whole system, not through one lens or two, but through all of these lenses. We're taking it beyond the individual and moving into the broader system. Now let's have a look at, further look at IECL's approach to this. And to do this, we look at 3 concentric circles or nested circles. And so whether we're working with an individual in a one-on-one coaching engagement, or we're teaching leaders to coach, or we're undertaking broader work with an organisation around, say, a culture change or a strategic initiative, we first look at what is the functional capability. We start with this first circle and what is available in the system. So once we've had a look at that and potentially done some capability or capacity building work, we then become curious about the relational intelligence. So here we're starting to think about relationship dynamics between individuals, between teams, between systems. And then we become curious about how those systems work and operate together. So what's the systemic intelligence that we need to listen into and tap into, both as coaches and as leaders who are using coaching skills, or leaders who are developing coaching cultures in order to serve organisational outcomes. So the functional, the relational, and the systemic. And for those of you who've undertaken any of our coach training, you'll start to recognise the connection here with IECL Coaching Essentials Level 1, Coaching Essentials Level 2, and Advanced Coaching Practice Level 3, which we'll explore further in a later session this afternoon that Mandy and I, or wherever you are in the world, this evening, this morning, that Mandy and I will take you through a little bit later. So they build on one another, they include as it grows. It's not do away with functional as you move to relational, it's a build. And another thing that I'd love to share with you today, and again, it's a quick whip through, are the IECL coaching principles, which link to this beautifully. And so again, these are deeply embedded in everything that we do. 6 coaching principles that we hold very, very dear. Again, whether we're coaching leaders, whether we're training in coaching or working with organisations in applied coaching practices. We start by having a look at the principle of relationship. And really, this is the container that enables the coaching work to be done, both individual relationship and stakeholder relationship. Another principle is the focus. So when we do a piece of work, what is the focus? Is it a problem, an aspiration, an outcome, or a particular impact? 3, the principle that we construct our world. So this belief comes from narrative theory and the belief that we construct our world, and if we construct it, we can also deconstruct it. So by as coaches listening into the narratives of individuals, the narratives of teams and organisations, we're able to serve those individuals and teams and organisations to achieve the outcome that the outputs that they're working towards. So if those narratives aren't serving them well, we might help the individual team or organisation to deconstruct and reconstruct. And one way that that can happen is through principle number 4, perspective taking capability. So coaching really does evoke new perspective, broadens perspective, and it changes the frame. It might even change things like the problem definition. And it really does enable us to see more around the focus area and what is possible. Number 5, the whole person. Whether we're working again with one person or a whole organisation, we're working with more than just the words and the language. We're also working with meaning and patterns and culture and all sorts of things, working with the individual's impact on culture and the culture's impact on them, which leads me into whole system. So, leaders exist and operate in very complex organisational systems. And when we start a dialogue with an individual or an organisation, we're really curious about the whole system and seeking to understand how the whole system impacts the work to be done, or the work to be done might impact that whole system. So very quick whip through. I'm mindful we want to get to Q&A. So I'll briefly share with you a couple of impact data points, a couple of ones from other places, and then one of our own, and point you to a few other resources as well. I'm mindful I'm running a couple of minutes over time, so I'll be quick. So coaching does work. There was late last year, Eric Dehaan published his book, What Works in Executive Coaching, Understanding Outcomes Through Quantitative Research and Practice-Based Evidence. And Eric did the mammoth task of gathering data from 160 research articles and did a meta-analysis of that data, which showed a very impressive effect size, meaning that the effect was visible to others. So anyone interested in looking at the data and plenty of detail that sits beneath that meta-analysis, have a look at Eric's work there. Another research reference we'll point you to is the Institute of Coaching report, which again was published late last year, Leading with Humanity, the Future of Leadership and Coaching. And IOC, for those of you not familiar with them, so Institute of Coaching McLean, they're an affiliate of Harvard and Harvard Medical School. So this was published just 6 months ago. And their report looked at, it was a result of a qualitative study on the impact of pandemic era disruptions. And they noted the main areas where coaches enable leaders to change. And you can see those listed there. A moment just to read through. And importantly, I want to point you to IECL's own research. So we gather data too, and our own coaching impact data shows goal attainment, which is one of the key indicators of coaching impact, was significant. So our the counterparts, the leaders we worked with in coaching, measured their own pre-coaching goal attainment as an average of 39 out of 100, shifting to 76 out of 100 post-coaching. We have a world-class NPS of 89.9, so that's in terms of likelihood to recommend that to other people. And we're seeing plenty of comments from people who've been through coaching referencing things like, I am thinking differently now on many levels. And importantly too, we wouldn't want goal attainment and improved performance to be the only measure. Impact, of course, needs to come in the form of wellbeing. We want to look at improvements in performance and wellbeing. And we're really thrilled to see that our 5 wellbeing measures that we track for, listed here, are all also heading in a positive direction. I'm going to pause there. I'm 3 minutes over. Couple of extra resources. Please do head to the IECL website. Have a look at our coaching impact report. Why coaching? Why now? Our knowledge bank for key writings from people within IECL and beyond, and our podcast series too, if you haven't already checked those out. Questions?
Thanks so much, Renee. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. The next session is starting in 6 minutes' time. So if you've got a question, either speak up or put it in the chat, and we've probably got time for 1 or 2 questions.
My name is TM George from Sydney. Renee had a question regarding the approach. You have the knowledge and component, which is which can be covered through training, etc. What is the support you provide in terms of one-on-one coaching, so that if you have to change your mindset and if you have to work on our own self, that requires one-on-one coaching support? Can you tell us a bit more about that part of it?
Do you mean in terms of learning how to do that for others, George, or actually getting that service for yourself or for somebody else?
For myself. In other words, if I have to be a coach, I need to work on myself first, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, if I have a particular coach who's helping me in the process throughout the training program, it can make a difference rather than me attending, say, 6 or 7 or 10 different training programs.
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways we do that, and potentially we could even take that question offline. I think there'll be some other sessions this afternoon that will help with exploring this, because we'll look at various IECL services and approaches to either building coaching capability, building that self-awareness within yourself as a coach and growing and developing as a coach. And we'll talk about the various pathways and options that are available as well. So I think there'll be plenty of things this afternoon, or whatever time it is in your part of the world, to be able to explore that a little bit further. I'm sure there will be.
Okay, thank you.